Those shirtless Abercrombie and Fitch models that used to stand in front of the doors of that store at the malls nationwide, they're doing just fine, thank you. This is the Focus Group.
They're all business, except when they're not. It's the Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash.
Welcome to the Focus Group. John Nash here with my good friend and co-host Tim Bennett. Find us on Wednesdays from 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Facebook Live and YouTube. Or focusgroupradio.com is our URL, and that's where all our media is housed. And, of course, we want you to check out TFG Unbuttoned. That's our Tuesday audio-only podcast. And you can find that at focusgroupradio.com as well. All our social media, by the way, is branded Focus Group Radio. It's pretty easy to remember. So welcome to calendar summer, Mr. Bennett.
Calendar, well, your tease about the Abercrombie and Fitch models, I just smiled. I suppose that caught your eye.
Yes, exactly. You guessed correctly.
Coming up, yeah. And I laughed because I remember those. I guess they don't do that anymore. I guess it wouldn't be loud, right? That would be too much. We'd be objectifying men, I guess.
I was going to say it's objectification. It's a lot of things, right? A lot of things.
It was good. I liked it.
Well, and yes, you're correct, and caught my eye, which is a little bit further into the broadcast. I found an article about where it was one of those "where are they now" things, and I just thought that a lot of the feedback from some of the guys interviewed was very amusing. Later in the show, we have Shop Talk in the second half of our broadcast. We're going to be looking at an alternate Pride March that's going to be happening in New York City again. This is a couple years running now, and then of course the airlines are questioning their sale or dispersal, if you want to say that, of alcohol on flights, given the unruly nature of passengers because of all the hand wringing over putting a piece of cloth over your mouth for a few hours, AKA the mask thing.
Yeah. Well, there seems to be lots of unruliness going on everywhere.
Mm-hmm,
That seems to be the MO. So we're in June, John. I can't believe it.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing that the year is flying by. Although it was a far different Memorial Day for all of us, I think, than it was in the past year, at least. And weather permitting, of course, you and I both experienced this cold, wet weekend, which actually brought me back to memories of being in lockdown a year ago. It was not pleasant. I was like, this feels a lot like lockdown. Thank you, weather.
No, I was definitely. I was glad I had a sweatshirt and some long pants and socks. I mean, it was cold, and I'm 5-6 hours south of you, and it was cold.
Yeah.
So it was cool along the East Coast, that's for sure.
Now, before we started recording, Tim was telling me some of the antics that were going down in Rehoboth to whip up customers to some of the gay bars, and I was too bad you didn't know about that sooner, right?
Well, they apparently brought in some of these. Of course, I've only seen it online. I didn't partake. I'm in bed on these hours. But, outside of, so there's, these, I never understood the Mid-Atlantic, and I don't know if New York is like this. But in New England, there was a very defined area of a town, right? You knew when you were in Woodbury. You knew when you were in Southbury. You knew when you were in Danbury or whatever,
Roxbury,
right?
Or one of the berries, right?
But in Pennsylvania and I'm in Delaware, you never kind of really know where you are. You're in the county, you're in an unincorporated area, you're in the town. So even though people say they're in Rehoboth, you're either in Rehoboth proper, which you pay a tax for, being in Rehoboth, which is only 1 square mile, or you're in Rehoboth, which is part of the county, and you don't have to pay because you're not as part of the 1 square mile, and there's different rules. So one of the bars, literally 3 feet across the line, I guess decided to whip up some excitement and had some sort of party. And I saw it online, and I was shocked about what I saw. A number of us were discussing it, but there was nudity. And they brought in some of these OnlyFans guys, and they were dancing around.
Nudity? Oh, no.
Nudity? It reminded me of the Follies in D.C., right? Which in D.C. they had a bar where you can get away with it because it wasn't a state. So there was really no state law.
Thank you for reminding me about the D.C. bars, because there were a couple that you could go to and see, dancers and the whole thing, right?
Right. So this was a similar thing. And then I was talking to some people that had lived here for a long time. They said, well, they have a tavern license. I said, well, what's it? What do you mean? They said, well, a tavern license means you don't have to serve food. And so the bars apparently within Rehoboth have to serve food until the whole time they're open, and only so much of their revenue can be generated from alcohol and all kinds of really crazy laws. I don't know if you have that sort of stuff up in upstate New York,
No,
but it
no.
seems to be a mid-Atlantic. I don't know. Pennsylvania's kind of like that too. But even when you and I were in Seattle, you and I have laughed about. You and I were in Seattle. We went to a bar and we saddled ourselves up and we asked for a vodka cranberry and we said that's across the street.
And that went on
It was
for
a
a
bar.
while. That went on for a while. And he kept saying, we have beer and wine. And we didn't, we were like, well, but we want a vodka cranberry, until finally he says, hard liquor is across the street. Beer and wine is here. So,
And you're standing there and you're looking around. You're like, aren't we at a bar?
yeah, that was one of our many learning experiences on the road, which I adore. Yeah, I tell you, this the antics for the are you in the county? Are you not? Can you be naked? Are you not? I didn't know that thing about DC. I'm glad you brought that up again.
Well, I remember going down there once in
What was the
shock.
big
And
bar
I said,
that
how can they do this? And they said, it's not a state.
they?
So they're not they don't have to abide by any real state laws or something. I mean, it was just crazy.
No.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some sort of laws, but that's the whole. Everybody finds a loophole, right? And that's what they said. There's all kinds of loopholes.
There's all kinds of loopholes. Yeah.
People are smart enough to figure them out. But I looked, and then there were parties and so forth. But we didn't do anything. I made hamburgers and hot dogs. I had a very traditional little barbecue myself, but that was about it.
Yeah,
But the weather was crappy.
yeah, we were pretty quiet. And finally yesterday when the sun came out around 3, and it really came out, sky cleared, I went on a bike ride and it almost made up for the rainy days. But on that note, let's see what caught your eye.
What caught your eye? Here's what Tim and John found.
So speaking of, I guess the big event and things opening up and so forth, and I mentioned it a couple of weeks ago about next door to me, they're building a house. And there's a porta potty out front that people seem to be using quite frequently now. I've noticed people will just stop. They see this porta potty and they'll just pull over and use it, which I think is kind of weird. But it's been kept clean. The guys are there twice a week cleaning
Yeah.
it. But this headline, this came from CNN. A lot of people are waiting for porta potties, and not just folks who need to go. So apparently there's a porta potty shortage. So apparently porta potties are in big demand. And they said even though last year there were no big summer events and road races or concerts or whatever, traditional things where you would see, outdoor summer concerts where people would use porta potties, what was happening was gas stations and other sort of suppliers or truckers were using porta potties at their places where you may drop things off because they didn't want people coming in the buildings. So say you were a trucker
okay,
and you were dropping something off, rather than you going inside to use the facility at the warehouse, they were bringing in porta potties. So they said while it didn't necessarily make up for lost business of not having all these outdoor venues and events that traditional porta potty suppliers would make money on, that they were able to make up for it by having this other stream of revenue. But what's happened now is people have gotten they've now liked the fact that they weren't having people come in, so people are now keeping these porta potties. But unlike what we were used to when we were growing up, or even as soon as 2019, you expected a porta potty to be dirty. You expected it to not be very clean, and it was just kind of your last necessity.
I'm laughing because I just had this thing. It was cycling too. If there was an event, the older porta potties, you just didn't really touch anything.
No,
The
you gotta
door
get out,
handle was
right?
basically and then the lock mechanism, but that was about it.
So what they're saying now is that people now have an expectation since the event that they are to be clean and a lot cleaner. And there's to be plenty of tissue available, which, is another issue with these porta potties. A lot of them now have sinks and washing stations, so they're now bigger. And so companies now are asking for bigger ones, and they're getting more particular about color, and which is also affecting the build of these because they said this is a petroleum product. So, of course, this is creating a larger expense for them because now gas and oil prices have gone up. So if you don't want a green one, if you wanted some other sort of color, it's gonna cost you money. So if you're in the porta potty business, or if you want to invest, apparently the way to go is to invest in some of these larger companies that supply these porta potties, because not only now that we're opening up, they said this is all, and we've talked about this, they said this reboot of the economy has happened a lot quicker than anybody expected. And they said all of a sudden there's events happening, road races are starting, cycling events, as you talked about, people sporting events, and particularly outdoor concerts, they said, are happening, and there's a big demand. They said if you did not order a porta potty a year ago, you're going to have trouble getting them because there's just a shortage of them. Coupled with, there's also a shortage of truck drivers.
I had heard about that. I never thought of connecting the two, but the truck drivers have to deliver the porta potties, right?
Porta potties. So right, and so the guy who runs one of these large companies said anybody who says that there's not a labor shortage is not telling you the truth. He said labor in all industries is a challenge, particularly transportation and freight. He said, coupled with securing raw materials has been a real challenge for us. He said this, and there's an unprecedented increase in the cost. And he said, but we're going to try to, supply everybody with as little disruption as possible. He said, but if you did not order a year ago, you're probably going to have to wait, rather than a couple of days, you will have to wait weeks to get a porta potty to come in. And they're trying to supply to everybody. But again, one of those things you don't think about.
Porta potties.
Porta potties. But he said but they said the funny thing about them now is the expectation that we've now come accustomed to the fact that we have a new expectation for them. They said the people that clean them and take care of them, where they might check them once a month at a job site, they're demanding now that they're checked at least once a week and sometimes twice a week to make sure that they're a lot cleaner, they're scrubbed down, they're cleaned out. We've all seen a disgusting porta potty, right? So I thought that was a good outcome of what we all went through in 2020.
Agreed. And this was another caught my eye about unintended consequences, right? You have no idea how there was an expectation that things would unroll or get back to normal a little more slowly, but boom, out of a cannon after the event, or we're still kind of in the event, everything's taking off. I like that one. And I like the fact that the newer models and the new services keep them clean.
Keep them clean, and putting in these sinks and these hand washing stations and
makes a difference. If you could sanitize your hands on the way out, yeah. Now, as I kicked off the show, what caught my eye for me was a little different. I came across this article, and it says the hunks are all right. And I've accompanied a picture of one of the old Abercrombie & Fitch / Hollister stores with these two hot guys, completely hairless, standing out in front of the store. All they're wearing is a pair of swim trunks and flip-flops. So we
stop a second before you go there. Remember the Hollister store just had a little pin light on a shirt? You couldn't see a darn thing in there.
It was so dark in Hollister. You couldn't even tell what color you were picking up off a table. If the shirt was red or it was black or it was navy blue.
And there was a certain point where you felt like an old troll going in there, right? Because you're like, okay.
You're ogling the graders, yeah. So everybody remembers Abercrombie & Fitch. They had 1,000 stores, over 1,000 stores nationwide. And they brought to life this whole California beach bum dream. You could buy a $30 pair of flip-flops there, and of course, they had these buff men at the front of the store, hairless, greeting people. Some of these top-tier hunks, by the way, that used to do this, have gone on to be big names, like Channing Tatum, Penn Badgley from Gossip Girl. Yeah, I didn't know that. 50 Shades of Grey's Jamie Dornan. Well, of course, when you hear these names, you think, oh, yeah, these guys have fantastic bodies. So this article looked at 5 guys and where they are at today. So I'm just going to do a quick recap. The first one's name is Samuel Rason, Rason. He is based in London, and he's flown around the world doing store openings, but he got the job because the day after doing an audition for a reality TV show, he needed to get some more clothes in case they called him back. He goes into the store, and the manager approached him and said, "Do you want a job?" And he started working the next day. He said he remembers being very nervous for the first shift. There were 100 people waiting for a picture. Kids go to Disneyland to have a photo with a superhero. It felt like that. You're playing the role of the Abercrombie shirtless greeter. And people
I didn't know people got pictures taken with them.
He told the author of the article that many of the hunks, as they're called, went on to be boxers, soldiers, physical therapists, trainers, models, entrepreneurs, financial advisors, Love Island and Bachelorette contestants, and even a professor of math. The next guy is called Johnny. It's not his real name. It's a pseudonym. He was based in Texas, but he also did some international store openings. His favorite experience was being in Shanghai for 2 months with 16 other store openers. They were all put together in a really cool place. He said it was a free vacation, but not everybody was thrilled to see them because at one point they were all arrested and interrogated because the authorities didn't know why they were shirtless. Johnny has left the world of shirtless hunkdom behind and now works in labor and employment law. And he's an attorney. And he said, being an attorney, I'm always having to interact with people that I don't know. From modeling, I learned how to make an effort to leave a good impression. I thought that was kind of interesting. So our next one here is Carter Check. He worked in an Abercrombie mall in America, the Mall of America in Bloomington, Minnesota, and his memories were being cold. Cold all the time. People would always ask him, are you cold? And he said he couldn't. There was only like 3 guys that were doing that store, and if one went off the floor to like get warmed up, you'd make the other 2 suffer. But here's one memory of his. One of the things that happened on multiple occasions was big hairy men would come and take their shirts off as a joke next to me and want to take a picture. He works in biotechnology now, and he's not surprised that the shirtless greeter is a thing of the past. He said he knew we were being objectified, and he didn't think it was overly controversial, but he couldn't have it happen this time in this time period. Next guy is Harry Tucker, and he was scouted in London and then started working with Abercrombie by modeling for one of the company's big store openings in Boston. He said this, it's probably the most boring job I've done, just standing outside with your top off. It's just a bit demoralizing, isn't it? I'd literally rather dig a hole. At least then you're doing something. Not only did he not enjoy being a shirtless guy, he's critical of the entire concept. It's very shallow. They used to employ people based on their looks. Anyone who wasn't as good looking went up and stocked shelves in the warehouse. I think the world we live in is superficial as it is. He's now a financial consultant. And one other guy here is Andrew, and this is the last guy, not his real name. He was scouted in Dublin. And his memory is of women being a little too handsy. Sometimes they would put their hands in places that they shouldn't put their hands, like up your back or on your bum or whatever, which was obviously weird, but it was just a bit of a joke at the time. Dublin is not known for its balmy climate either. If it got below 35, then you had the option to wear a shirt, but they tended not to take that option, and they were encouraged not to. He also remembers the aesthetic being a bit of a drag. The slightest bit of hair on your face, and they'd make you go inside and shave with these awful Bic razors, and your face would become cut up, and you go back out and greet people. He now works in sports marketing. So there you go.
I wonder if they were getting paid minimum wage, or they paid him a little more.
I don't know. It's such a weird, I think they all made the same amount. I'm guessing, right. But. It's an interesting. One of the guys further elaborated that he was so nervous about his looks that this kept him fit for life. Because he was always looking at the other guys and do I look as good as them? And what a weird one, huh? It's just an interesting. The Abercrombie.
And the guy who ran that was a nut, apparently, right?
You did a Caught Your Eye once years ago about his private plane and how he had to have people dressed a certain way, and he hired guys that looked a certain way. So yeah.
Particular ball cap and blah blah blah.
Yeah. So moving on here, folks. As many of you know, Deep Discount is a partner of ours here on the Focus Group, and we would love you to go to their site by going to ours, focusgroupradio.com, clicking on the Deep Discount logo, and begin your shopping experience. Of course, we get credit for you visiting the site and doing some shopping, so we like that. It is their site-wide sale, and we're also doing a giveaway of movies, some discs this week from Wolf Video. So site-wide sale means shop till you drop, and I think, Tim, you have a very interesting one that I like. So what was your pick?
Well, I was scrolling through, and so before John does the movie giveaway, I found this, which I thought was great. 50 years of Planet of the Apes movies. I didn't realize there were 9 of them. Did you know there were 9 Planet of the Apes movies?
I'm assuming this is considering this includes some of the reboots, the modern ones.
It must be because there's some, it's they've got James Franco and Woody Harrelson and some of these, which had to be, more recent things because some of the old ones have, Roddy McDowall and
Right,
and
right.
Carlton Heston. So, but it's every single one of the movies, and it comes available on Blu-ray, and you can get it for a price of $50, a little over $50. So you save close to $20. Head over to focusgroupradio.com, click on the deep discount logo, and it's a site-wide sale. And get the Planet of the Apes movies, the whole collection box set, or whatever else you want to find there, because there's lots of stuff on sale. So what's our giveaway today, Mr.
Well,
Nash?
the release this week, by the way, is a movie called The World to Come, and it's released by Wolf Video, and they gave us copies of this movie to give away. I think it's a lesbian romance because the description is, in this powerful 19th century romance set in the American Northeast, Abigail, a farmer's wife, and her new neighbor, Tally, find themselves irrevocably drawn to each other. A grieving Abigail tends to her withdrawn husband, as free spirit Tally bristles at the jealous control of her husband. Together, their intimacy begins to fill a void in each other's lives they never knew existed. So it's called The World to Come. And we're going to play a game, and it's Pick That Flick. We did it a few weeks ago. We gave away some discs, so we're going to be giving away copies of The World to Come. Just send us I'm going to play a clue, audio clue for a movie. If you know where the name of the movie, send your guess to letters@focusgroupradio.com. If it's an email you use frequently and you check it, I'll get back to you if you win. If not, include your mailing address. We only use it to ship the disc. Again, letters@focusgroupradio.com. And here is the Pick That Flick clue.
Yes. Well, you see, I'm looking for something a little more illegitimate.
Oh, I'm sure that with a little practice...
Lady. That is like a nun saying with a little practice she could become a streetwalker.
I was playing a bunch of audio clues last night, and Bob was listening, and Bob goes, "That's the clue." So I'm going to play this again. Remember, if you know the name of the movie this came from, drop your guess and your mailing address to letters@focusgroupradio.com. And here's the clue again.
Yes. Well, you see, I'm looking for something a little more illegitimate.
Oh, I'm sure that with a little practice...
Lady. That is like a nun saying with a little practice she could become a streetwalker.
There's
to find those clips.
Yeah,
Mr.
there's a
Nash.
couple of things in there that the smart listener there's a couple of vocal clues and male, female that people will pick up on. But that's about as much as I'm going to say. So letters@focusgroupradio.com if you know the name of that movie, where that clip came from. And, of course, include your mailing address if you don't check your email too often.
Cool. So thanks again to our friends at Deep Discount. Head over to focusgroupradio.com. Start shopping away. It's a site-wide sale. I recommended 50 Years of Planet of the Apes. And, of course, we're giving away The World to Come. And stay with us. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we've got a business birthday and a shop talk. So stay tuned.
You're listening to The Focus Group with Tim and John. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com. Now back to The Focus Group with Tim and John. Available pretty much everywhere.
Hey, welcome back to the Focus Group. John Nash with Tim Bennett. FocusGroupRadio.com is the URL of our website. All our media is housed there, including TFG Unbuttoned, our Tuesday podcast. So as we kick off the second half of the show, I'm kind of thinking to myself, I would never have been an Abercrombie greeter, by the way.
Why not?
I never had the body for that. And I think that that's such a fascinating thing, you know. it's just they scouted guys who looked a certain way. That's that, you know.
Well, they'd have probably never owned an ad agency.
So those guys went on to do good things, though. So, you know, it's nice to read that they knew they were objectified. They knew they were hired for their looks. They knew what they were doing. And they went into, like, attorney, financial stuff, whatever. So they had careers.
You know, so much of those people, you and I have talked about this before, it's genetics, right? I mean, our friend Matt, who was a fitness model, I would watch him sit down and eat a full pint of Ben & Jerry's ice cream and it did nothing to him. I mean, if I ate or smelled it, I would, you know,
The
blow up
smelling
like a
part, I
balloon.
know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, right. You know what I mean? So, but he could eat something like that and metabolize it 1, 2, 3, and he never had an issue. And you know, there's some people that just were built differently, and their bodies reacted differently. And you know, it's the luck. What is it? The luck of the genetic draw, I guess.
Totally. So as we go into the second half of the show, we have our business birthday.
Everyone does celebrity birthday greetings, but the Focus Group is the only show in the universe that celebrates business birthdays.
Did you ever hear the name Vic Firth?
No, but when you sent the picture, which I love, and I did a little R&D myself, I was really, this is a cool one. So take it
Did you
away.
cheat?
Well, no, I
cheat and
did a
look?
little bit, yeah, because I saw the picture and I'm like, what is this? Because I know what he was holding. Well, we'll show. I'll call it up here.
Okay. Well, his Everett Joseph, or Vic Firth, born today, June 2nd. He was born in 1930. He died in 2015 in July at 85. He was an American musician and the founder of the Vic Firth Company. And probably if you're a drummer, you would know that is a company that makes percussion sticks and mallets, or we know them as drumsticks.
Sticks, yeah.
And so, as I said, he was born June 2nd in Winchester, Massachusetts. He was raised in Sanford, Maine, which is in southern Maine. His dad was a trumpet player. He started playing music when he was a young kid, and he went off and he played all kinds of different percussion instruments, and ended up getting a bachelor's degree at the New England Conservatory in Boston, and was one of the youngest people to be hired by the Boston Orchestra. From 1956 to 2002, he was employed there and worked there. He was the orchestra's youngest member when he was hired in 1952. And so what had happened is, while he was there at performing for the orchestra, he was asked to perform a piece that he felt required a higher quality drumstick than what he was given. So he couldn't find anything, so he ended up whittling his own. He ended up hand whittling some drumsticks, and he sent the prototype up to Montreal, Quebec, to have them try to make a couple. And they sent them back, and they called them SD1 and SD2. And they ended up becoming the first models for what became the Vic Firth Company in 1963, that he ended up started making drumsticks. And that led to making over 300 different types of drumsticks and mallets, became the largest manufacturer of drumsticks and mallets for drumming or for percussion instruments. I've never heard of the company, which I guess if I was a drummer, I'd have probably known, but the company still bills itself as the world's largest manufacturer of drumsticks and mallets, and they were based in Maine. The company in 2010 merged with another company, but they still kept it to run independently. And as I said, they offer over 300 products. They make 12 million drumsticks a year. The other interesting thing, I don't know if you saw this, they also produced a line of pepper mills, salt grinders, and rolling pins.
This is not on my radar. This, but they're wood. They're wooden. So I guess
they're wood. So they also did that, and they sold those up until 2012 under the name Maine Wood Concepts of New Vineyard, Maine. And they've since been rebranded under the name Fletcher's Mill. He wrote a number of books throughout his career about drumming. As I said, he died at 85 at his home in Boston, Massachusetts in July 26, 2015. But again, it's one of these things. We often talk about people who start companies out of necessity. He was a drummer. He didn't feel like the drumsticks he had were sufficient enough, so he went out and kind of made his own, which led him to develop this company, which became the largest supplier, largest manufacturer of drumsticks and mallets. And then he went off and did pepper grinders and pepper mills.
But it's the standard. so drummers and percussionists probably only buy his drumsticks, right? I mean, because they're now like the musical standard.
Yeah. Yeah. So happy birthday!
It's a good one.
Mr.
It's
Vic
a very
Firth.
you've had a crop of names we've never seen before, and we've been doing this. Well, you've been doing this for a long time, not only on Sirius XM satellite radio, but on our video and audio podcasts. And the dates. I still don't even know how you figure this stuff out or how you find them. It's kind of a secret sauce thing,
Well, this one, I will say, this took a while. This one took quite a while. And I struggled. And then, there's the usual suspects. There's somebody who comes up that was, they're a manager or they're a CEO of, Morgan Stanley or there's something. We've done all those and they're somewhat
Obvious
boring. So you
business.
really have,
Obvious business. Yeah.
right. And you really have to dig. And we used to do every now and then on SiriusXM, maybe a repeat, but I'm trying to make sure we have a running list of all these folks. And I try not to do a repeat. This is one we haven't done. And try not to do a repeat. And but yeah, you have to dig around. Like last week when we did Matt Stone.
Love that one. Totally love
But
that.
I would sometimes say, well, maybe that doesn't count as a business birthday. But you were always very adamant to say, you know what, that's a career.
Mm-hmm.
That's and that definitely is a bit, animation and all that production work that you did certainly is a business, right?
Yeah, and he changed pop culture. He really added to pop culture. And Vic Firth is another perfect example of a musician who becomes a businessman, who creates drumsticks and stuff for percussionists that are the standard, right? So it's cool. So a couple of shop talks for you. First one we have, it concerns Pride. We're in Pride Month officially. June is Pride Month. Tim and I have a...
Happy Pride!
Happy Pride! The Pride
There
Leprechaun.
he is, the leprechaun
The
has
Pride
arrived,
Leprechaun
the Pride
usually
Leprechaun.
comes out for New York City Pride at the end of the month. But Happy Pride, top of the Pride to you was the rallying cry. But Pride has become very divisive for many people because it seems to have become a multi-million-dollar corporate parade of floats, and you have to register to be in these things. And in fact, when you think of the New York City Pride March, it's transformed from a 7 to a 9 to a 12-hour circus, and you have to where's your group? Well, we're going to be at 7 p.m. So this shop talk comes to us from Tim, and the headline reads, Third Annual Queer Liberation March set for June 27th in New York City. So an organization, the Queer Liberation March, they set up their own alternate, I guess the best way to say it's an alternate pride, right? It happens the same day as the major march in New York City, but it just happens at a different part of the city. Last year, they estimated it was about 45 or 50,000 people marched. It did end up with some clashes with police because there was also some, they were protesting with Black Lives Matters as well. But I think the point of all this is this organization wants Pride to be brought back to its grassroots as a political statement, as, something where it's not just, whistles and floats and boys dancing shirtless on cars going by. So it's interesting, and it's picked up steam, and it's certainly picked up a lot more people, that's for sure.
Yeah, the headline or the tagline they're using is "No cops, no corpse, no BS." And I struggled with this, and I know there was an SNL skit that was done, I think, this past weekend, where they were kind of making fun of the Pride events in June coming along with corporations. I don't know what to feel. And again, this is again where we miss out a little bit of having the live phone calls come on. Is I thought the whole purpose of acceptance was that you wanted to be recognized by these corporations. And it was, I remember in the 80s and 90s being a big deal when you would see Northwest Airlines at the time, when I lived in Minneapolis, or you would see a large business, IBM or somebody marching in a parade.
Yeah.
And it was viewed as progress and a big deal, the fact that these corporations were recognizing their employees or being part of the Pride celebration. This group doesn't want that, and they think that it's become too corporate, too material.
Yeah, well,
too corporate,
too much of a party. The organization is called Reclaim Pride Coalition and RPC, and they're going up against the HOP, not to be confused with IHOP, but it's the Heritage of Pride. And Heritage of Pride is a 501c3 in New York City that puts on the big Pride March, which makes it, you have to pay to be in it. They don't necessarily work with community groups. But if you go for me, when I go all the way back to some of the first Pride marches I ever attended, It was smack in the middle of the HIV/AIDS epidemic, and I think anybody who's participated at that point in time remembers the moment of silence, where the whole parade would just stop, and it was a really super powerful moment, reminding us that people were dying in this epidemic, and that it required more attention, certainly from the government. So that had obviously there was a political, thing to that. But it reminded you also that you were marching for a reason, for visibility. Now it seems like you march because it's Pride Month and there's a bunch of dances and parties, and the big parade is just the icing on the cake, I suppose. So I think RPC, the organization that does this alternate Pride, is basically just saying, time to get back to our grassroots. We still have a long way to go. And in fact, given the makeup of the current Supreme Court and a few other cases that are winding their way into it and could be announced as early as this week, rights are sometimes taken away. So, I'm not so sure. It seems like an interesting confluence, right? There's this big corporate thing. I'm even saying it. There's this big corporate thing called, gay pride. And then there's this smaller offshoot now saying, let's take it back. I don't know.
I guess we probably disagree. I mean, so you agree with these folks?
RPC?
You think that you think there's too much corporate involvement?
I certainly think. Well, look, I participated for a couple years at the corporate level, and it's a very important thing for corporations who have employee groups, et cetera. And this is a way for the corporation to show their employees that they are in fact supportive, that they're behind them. So that's one thing happening. But it is turned into, well, look, from a business point of view, when you and I are consulting with clients about, for instance, marketing to the gay consumer, what's our advice about gay pride?
Well, it's not necessary.
Well, we actually say avoid it like...
Put your money toward it, right?
Yeah, we actually say avoid it like the plague. There's a lot of money that's already in there, and there's a lot of messaging that's happening, and it's no longer a unique thing for a company to march in pride. But if you go back to 1998 or 2003, when a corporation that never had done it before had a float go down, people went crazy. Right. So I think and I think now there's an expectation that companies, of course, they're doing this. Of course, they're involved with pride. The whole thing.
Well, it's sponsors too, and I think the New York parade. I mean, as I read the line here, they said that the New York parade is transformed into a 12-hour circus, which and they said, full of overflowing with corporate floats, and it's become the new symbol of gay for pay. And that's what you and I were saying, is that it's become so overloaded that it's lost its oomph, because everybody's there and it's almost expected. But there is, you can make an argument on both sides. And then the other thing, though, I do, and this just drives me crazy. And actually, Derek and Romaine had posted a video which everybody should watch on Vice. I should post it to our site. But it was a bunch of different people from different areas within the community were talking about this additional letters that have been tacked on. So now they're saying it's LGBTQIA2S plus community.
I can't remember all that, and I apologize to every other letter after the T. I just can't remember all that.
But that's what this was about. And it was, enough. And they asked, and everybody in all those letters was represented, and they did ask the question, the moderator, who likes this? And nobody raised their hand.
Interesting. I remember when you watched this, you thought this was a really powerful video.
I thought it was, because but what it does is and one woman, I'm just a lesbian. And she said, but we're all different. We're all sitting here, we're all different, but they put us all together. But we're really all different. And she said, but we've been put together, and we all have different thoughts and different views on things, and you just kind of have put us all together here. And I thought she made a lot of sense. I'm not saying exactly how she said it, but I think the point of view of everybody there, they all had a different thought, and some people felt that some of the letters were just more political labels rather than real labels or scientific labels or whatever. So, but when you start doing all that too, I mean, you and I have said that a million times, when you start measuring everything like that, you end up with nothing, because what is LGBTQIA2S plus? You going to market to that?
No, you're not. And I would like to think that the tent is big enough for everybody to participate, meaning an alternate Pride March. Why not, right? You're making you're making a statement different than the one that's happening, the official one that's happening. But it does tend to fracture the unity of the message, right? So if you were looking at a pride parade like in New York and you saw there was two alternate ones, there's one that was we're taking back pride, and there's this other thing going on with handing out, things being thrown from floats and everybody cheering. It sends a very mixed message. But again, that may not be the whole point. Maybe the participation is. How you choose to participate sends a message about where you think this is going. Are you going to be in the alternate one, or are you going to be in the one that's deemed very corporate? It's and this compounds the problem. The problem is compounded by the fact that we covered this a week or two ago when New York City Pride said the police, New York NYPD, could not march in the parade for a variety of reasons. And there was I don't know if you saw any of this in the stuff that you read, but there was a lot of pushback on that, a lot of controversy. They reinstated it, and then they took it away again. It just sends a message of confusion, but maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe the movement needs to have a lot of different things happening to solidify around something as we move forward. Or am I being too optimistic?
No, but they did say that both organizations tried to talk to each other, and one said that they produce a big party and a festival rather than a political event. The people at Heritage of Pride use LGBTQIA. They don't use the other moniker where they added the 2S plus. I mean, it's all over the map. But you would think exactly what you said. Could you come to some sort of compromise on here? Because what you're going to do, it's almost as if there was a Korean Day parade, and North Korea was having one parade go down Madison Avenue, and South Korea was having, a parade going down Park Avenue, right? So which are you going to go to, the North Korean parade or the South Korean parade? For Korea Day, what are you going to do? And it makes me feel that way a little bit about it. Maybe that's
and if you're just someone who wants to participate, which parade are you choosing to go to? It could end up being what are your friends doing? All right, so our last shop talk, and many of you have seen this in the headlines recently. American Airlines extends its suspension of alcohol services following an assault on a Southwest flight attendant. Which, if you've seen that recording, you're like, "What is going on here?" The suspension of alcohol service makes complete sense to me. When you mix liquor with anything, sometimes it's a happy drunk and sometimes someone gets really, nervy and nasty. Just to go back in time, though, alcohol service on airlines has been predominantly looked at as a revenue generator. Because if it was free in first class or business, that's one thing. But selling it in the back of the plane along with food and everything, that was a revenue generator. So this notion of suspending it is fine because of behavioral issues. But I wouldn't mind if it went away altogether. I'm not sure I want people drinking on planes. I mean, I don't do it myself because you do it once and you become dehydrated on a 6-hour flight and you get off the plane with a pounding headache. And you're like, I'm not doing that again. Did you ever experience that? The wine, the whole bit?
Oh, I've drank on the planes, but I've never drank enough where I was drunk.
Never drunk, no.
Or I had too much. I mean, I've been on planes though where people have been drunk that I've traveled with, workers, senior leaders, that were told to be quiet because they drank so much, flying overseas. But and there was a flight I was on with a good friend of ours where they were serving free wine. It was a late night flight. We were heading west. And the flight attendants, they served dinner, and then it was late. They shut the cabin lights off. We were going to land on the West Coast probably sometime around 9, 10 o'clock at night. It was dark. And a guy was in first class, obviously tuned up drunk, and decided he was going to serve the cabin in economy with wine. So the curtain flies open from first class. He's got all the wine bottles tucked on his suit, and he's now going to serve the economy class. He's going to now pour the wine as the flight attendants are sitting having their dinner. So they didn't know he was loose. So we're sitting there. It was Mahoney and I. Mahoney's like, watch this. This guy was so drunk, and he's coming down. This woman in a very nice kind of beige tailored suit sitting there. She's like, no. I get you some wine. Spills this red wine all over her. She's yelling. Next thing you know, it's bang, bang, bang. Flight attendants are all running. They had all kinds of issues with her. She was furious, but he got a hold of the wine bottles and decided he was going to, pour the folks in first class or in economy some booze. But the reason I bring that up is because Americans said they're going to suspend alcohol sales, except they're still going to do it. They're still going to offer liquor in first class and business class. So what's the point if you could still? I think you do it across the whole plane, don't you?
Yeah, although maybe they feel they can control the situation up in the front of the plane.
You can, as I've said.
Well, your example is perfect. It's hey, you want a glass of Chardonnay or Cabernet? I could not. Of course, a trip with Mahoney, and I could just see him slyly saying, "Hey, let's check this out. This is gonna end poorly. It's gonna end in tears." Is the phrase, right?
Yeah, well, he and I were up front in economy, and when that curtain flew open, he's like, "Ooh, watch this!" This guy's pouring wine. He's taking over for the flight attendants. He goes, "Where are they?" But what's happened? I think what's happened here. This, and you had mentioned this. I mean, this is a very serious issue, not only on the airlines where people are being belligerent and ridiculous, and these fights are breaking out. You see it all over on social media. But they were showing something on the news this past week as well. What's happening at basketball games? Mm-hmm. I don't know if you've seen that as well on all these different basketball games where fans are throwing things at players. They're assaulting players. They're coming on the court. The unruliness that's taking place.
The lack of civility. It's a lack of civility. Simple, plain civility, right?
Yeah. They throwing bottles, throwing things at people. It's just It's really, really too bad. But yeah, the behavior to knock out that woman's teeth at Southwest Airlines, that flight attendant, was disgusting for not wearing a mask, right?
Yeah, incomprehensible and totally uncalled for. And yeah, I mean, what else? It's horrible. I can't imagine she wants to go back to work. But
maybe they did say Delta and United Airlines are still not. They're still going to be serving alcohol, but. So we'll see what happens, but stay tuned. I'm sure it's all going to change. So hey, welcome to June, welcome to summer. Thanks for joining us. As John said at our deep discount segment, we're going to be giving away the movie The World to Come. If you want to check out the film clip and send your guest to letters at focusgroupradio.com, courtesy of our friends at Deep Discount. And learn more about us at focusgroupradio.com. Be sure to catch our Tuesday podcast, which is TFG Unbuttoned. We hope everyone has a good start of the week, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care.
It's The Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash. Accessible on all platforms. Subscribe, like, and rate us on your platform of choice. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com.
That was a stunning focus group.